Welcome to Tail Learn Code. Here there will be tales about software development, learning from each other, code to build solutions. And now your host, Chad Green.
All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I know I'm having a wonderful day. And especially because I have Mitch Sellers on the line with me. So Mitch is another one of these guys who speaks at a lot of conferences. And one of these people who I miss because he's someone I see at least a couple times a year. Especially if I'm speaking more west, right? Like in the, like in Nebraska Code and that side of the mid part of the country. So welcome, Mitch. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh yeah. And it's awesome, to give away something about Mitch. If you can't get it from his background, Mitch actually flies his own personal planes. I was gonna say it was no surprise you have planes behind you, right?
Yeah. Well, and those are realistic models of my airplane. It's fine. It's but yeah, and I'm really missing in-person conferences because I don't have an excuse to play in the airplane. So.
And we were joking right before we came online that how. Mitch normally flies into Louisville on his own plane. He was talking about, so for those who don't know anything about Louisville, so the Louisville airport is is headquarters for UPS Aviation. So most likely, if you get a package overnight, it came through Louisville. It's a very good chance. And he was talking about coming in, where the clouds are really low and popping under the clouds at like 190 feet, and right alongside him on the other runway is a big jumbo jet, landing with UPS paint on it, which is not unusual. I mean, I pretty much think they should just rename it UPS International, but
it would be much easier. I mean, really, it's because every time I've came in, they're like, "Follow the UPS." I'm like, "All right, that's fine. Which one?"
Right. It's I always really do like going down, and of course I live just south of the airport. I always like at late at night, and especially on a clear night, because you'll see the aircraft lined up waiting to land, and on a clear night you'll see about 5 miles out, and the way how you know is because you see 5 sets of planes, and of course they're all a mile apart from each other, but you see 2 rows of them because they're using both runways to land. And
it's amazing how busy you guys are. I mean, it's close to Chicago O'Hare for busyness at night. And I came in the middle of that for last year's event. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, all right, well, we'll just stick you in the middle. And snuck me in the middle between a couple of them. And I'm like, oh, get out of your way. I'm just a little guy. But no, it's, I'm looking forward to the virtual event this year. It's going to, I think, be different for all of us. But,
yeah, it's well, we were talking about it before. It's interesting because most of the general conferences, so conferences like Code PaLOusa, have been canceled this year, which was the reason why I decided to make it online. And it's our 10th year, right? So I didn't want to hold the 10th year off, right? I mean, I could have, right? Just said, well, next year will be our 10th year, but I was like, no, we'll continue as normal. I mean, that's software development, right? No matter what goes on, we still have to release, right? And
I mean, not only that, for me, I'm typically talking about the new stuff, right? Or the newer stuff. Mm-hmm. And just because we have a pandemic, just because we can't do some of this stuff, the technology is still evolving, right? Yeah. We're still getting new releases of .NET Core. We're still getting all of this stuff. So the information sharing for me is still the huge piece of it, right? Oh, yeah. There's still new things to learn, or just things to move to that we maybe should have a long time ago, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So cool. So, let's start off with, quickly introduce yourself.
Mitch Sellers, obviously. I am based in the Des Moines, Iowa area, and I run a consulting company called Iowa Computer Gurus. We do .NET Core development, some Xamarin mobile app development, and anything related to .NET really. Been doing a lot more architecture consulting and developer team mentoring in the last 1.5 to 2 years, helping modernize development teams. So we come in, do some analysis, help them migrate to .NET Core. That's been a big thing. Or decide that maybe they shouldn't move to .NET Core for whatever reason that may be. So really it's, a big thing. And then on the side of all of that, when I do have spare time, when I'm not with the wife and kids, I also do some flight instruction. I decided I love flying enough that I was going to be brave enough to teach other people how to do it.
So, and then, how has the pandemic been treating you?
March and April were probably the weirdest months in 15 years of doing this. As a consultant, we're always in cycles, right? We'll have ebbs and flows.
Sure.
The last big one we had, the last presidential election, regardless of whatever, but the last presidential election, because we had a bunch of stuff tied to the EPA, was our last real big slump. But that was only a couple of weeks. It was more of a, hey, we decided to kind of put a bunch of eggs in this basket, and well, the basket moved.
Right.
March and April this year is just weird. We had a lot of clients just say, hey, we can't spend money. We had other clients that are like, oh my God, we still need this project done, but can we pay you net 90? So, I did a lot of work for what seemed like free in March and April. But July is going to look really good.
Right.
Without really doing as much. But it's been interesting. We're recovering. I actually used flight instruction in March and April as a great supplemental income while my clients were figuring things out. Like, I didn't have as much work to do, so I was able to do 25, 30 hours of flight instruction a week for a little while. But now I think we have another hammer that's going to drop. The clients are doing things, but we're starting to see, we've had some clients disappear, as in no longer in business because they're restricted. We're lucky. We can do our work.
Yep.
I can work anywhere. That's the benefit. You have the same thing, right? You find the offices are closed. You can't go in. Here's your laptop. Get your work done. But yeah, so it's been interesting. It's in my business model planning and forecasting. Every scenario that I came up with, yep, this wasn't one of them.
Right. It's funny. So one of the groups I'm part of is a tech leaders group, and I think it was in March. It was either March or April. No, it had to been April. When we met. So everything's really fresh. And one of the guys who normally joins is actually head of IT for one of the local banks, and it just happened to be back in like October. They actually just finished planning for what would happen if a pandemic happened.
Oh wow!
So talk about fortuitous timing, right? You couldn't have set that any better, right?
There is one amazing positive for me as a consultant, and I think for a lot of us. Last year, I still had the clients, right, that were like, well, we really would rather have you be on site. That has pretty much ended now for what we do, right? For IT work, there's still times and places for on-site meetings, and I kind of long for the day that we can go back to doing some of those. But at the same time, we can get things done. Even some of my local clients that, as a consultant, I don't want to spend an hour a day driving to somebody because that doesn't work. Even now, I've got some of those local ones that are there. So I think there is some positive. But I think we're going to be seeing disaster recovery, continuity planning. I'm seeing a lot of movement in there only in the last couple of weeks, How do I really protect myself if I can't get back to the office with a remote team? So it's a whole new sector, I think, for some of us in IT to take advantage of.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's I said this early on. Now it's just dragging, but I'm curious how much people are going to push back from working from home, a year from now, right? Because before this started, we were seeing more and more people work from home, but it was still a lot of pushback from companies. Well, we're not sure. I worked out of Fort Knox for a long time, which for a lot of people was really hard because it was at least an hour drive to get out there. Because even though Funny thing is, Fort Knox runs right up against the city. It's a really big place, so to get into the base, you had to go way out of your way. And we fought for years to allow people to work from home, and they always, oh no, we can't let contractors work from home. We can't let contractors work from home. Sure enough, now they're all working from home. And I was just talking to one of my old buddies out there, and he was like, "Yeah, it looks like we're going to keep it this way too." And I'm like, "Well, that's good. That's."
I wouldn't want to own commercial. I would not want to own commercial business property right now.
Yeah.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of leases that come up, and companies can be like, "No, we don't need 500 seats. We only need 200." You know, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. No, I mean, I work for a company. We don't even have a physical location. I mean, our corporate headquarters is a PO box in a UPS store, right? So you know, it's, or the CEO's house, however you look at it, right? You know, it's. But I agree with you. You're right. I think we're going to see fewer and fewer. I mean, with that being said, there are times. I mean, you talked about there are times where you would like to be able to go to the client site. You know, I mean, work from home is different, right? And managing a team is a little bit harder from working from home. And not that not that I want to be able to see what my people are doing all the time, but it's a little hard to get sentiment from folks online, right? It's you don't see those subtle signs that someone's struggling or someone's just having a bad day unless they tell you. Right. And most technology people won't just go tell you, hey, I'm just having a bad day. Right. You know, it's whereas if I walk by and I see them slumped over their desk, I could probably tell that, Joe's probably not having a good day today. But yeah. Well, it's good to hear that, you mostly have stabilized. I mean, and again, I worry for my consulting friends, right? Because, it is hard, right? Because obviously, what's the first thing you're going to do is cut off some of the consulting work at first. Yeah, as a big corporation, we won't do this project now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're 100% correct, right? That it does, but then at the same time, I think it's going to be the exact opposite that it's going to ramp up. Because when there's uncertainty in hiring, that's where we traditionally, right, get really busy. 2008, 2009 was a big boom for consultants as well, because people didn't want to hire. So it's anybody's game. But I think it's for me, it's true in the sense that nothing is reacting the way that we expect, right? A business says we lost $50 million this quarter and their stock shoots up 15%. It's opposite land, right? And so we can't plan for it. And that's where, for me, it's spread the net, right? It's do the speaking engagements, get some webinars out there, make sure that people know you're still there, and be willing to flex. At least that's what's worked for me thus far in the pandemic. But the next 6 months, who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean obviously we're definitely. I don't think it's a question whether we're gonna have a second wave. I think we're in the beginning of that second wave. But I hope that we can start seeing something settle here. It's I won't go too much into it because you quickly into politics, and I try to stay away from the politics of things.
I agree. That's the problem, right?
It's the problem about talking about any of this, right? It quickly goes into politics.
We go much further, right? And then we're down that rabbit hole, and no good comes of it.
Yeah,
that's really it's hard because we are professionals, and you would think that we could have a conversation, but no, we can't.
I mean, the one thing I will say, and I don't think anyone, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, the world we're in right now is too highly politicized, and everything becomes a political issue, which is, I think that's where we're kind of going wrong as society. But getting back to all this, so, how did you get started in technology?
I got started. I grew up. My dad ran a consulting company. when I was in middle school, so I'd been around technology forever. I was 10 years old getting paid to format floppies and put the stickers on them.
Yep.
Something that so many people sadly don't have a clue what I'm talking about.
The save icon.
Yeah. It makes kind of sad, but no, I mean, like I get a box of 100 floppies, and boom. I helping him with stuff. I taught myself GW Basic way back in the day. Modified that little gorilla game where it threw the banana, and so it just kind of started from there, and I always kind of liked it. Learned how to do web programming in middle school. And really it became a series of lucky events after that. I graduated high school, tried the college thing for a while, messed that up, decided that I should probably go work so I can pay for the college.
Right.
Eventually finished, got that all taken care of, but started working in industry, and I went the path of wanting to learn how to do things right, and that's what I think really kind of accelerated things for me. I didn't want 12 years of experience being the same 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, got one job, learned how to do that job well. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, fine, we'll let you do this special project. And then they're like, you pulled that special project off? How? And you bless them. I mean, it's been kind of lucky. I mean, I started out technically, in true professional career, I started at a help desk for Dell's online training customer support through a third-party company, was called GeoLearning back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And we did some things with client credentials that weren't safe, right, for logging into websites. And I'm like, this could be done better. And they're like, fine, just build it. And I built it. And that was it. I got moved into the development team. Scarily, that app is actually still in use today. It is .NET Framework 1.1. But it's passed multiple DoD security reviews and a bunch of other things. So surprising. But yeah, it was, I kind of knew where I wanted to go. And then it's just upwards. I decided to leave corporate America, 10 plus years ago, because I wanted to be able to have a little bit more control over learning the new technologies and really helping people do things. Technology shouldn't be hard. And I find that we have so many people in our industry that make it hard or make it complicated. And that's my goal, is to make it easier.
Cool. It's I remember GW Basic very well.
I don't think I could do anything now, but I mean, just think back to like, I actually would love to have found some of the old stuff I had done, back when you didn't have a good way to save it, and your floppy disk you can't store a Word document on it now that has no text in it.
Right. Yeah, it's it's crazy when we look at how big files have become over the time. Which is why every time you get a hard drive, and you're like, oh, I'll never be able to fill this up. Well, no, you will, and then we'll just get bigger hard drives. It's but basically our industry has decided that we're never going to really worry about space, because we'll just build bigger, and every time we build bigger, we'll just create things that that take up more space.
It's why it's really hard to teach people memory management and performance.
Sure.
Because we have a tendency to throw hardware at it. And so that's where I love getting into religious arguments about memory management and .NET and performance issues, just because it's one of those things like, but we can make it work better. Well, we could just add more memory, but we could just do our job better.
Right.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, all I got to do is spend another $100 a month, and I can make it work better, right?
Right. Yeah, can I get that $100 a month if I make it work better for you? Like, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it usually doesn't work that way.
Hey, man, I'm going to keep trying. Somebody will say yes.
So what kind of challenges have you seen in technology?
There's been a lot of them over the years, but the last couple of years, it's what to adopt. Right? We can't go back to some of what we did before. We've transitioned, right, from a cycle of change that was, every, we'll call it 18 to 36 months, right, in the .NET world, right? Visual Studio 2003, Visual Studio 2005, 2005, 2008, right, 2008, 2012, to a situation where not only is the frequency coming way faster, right? I mean, we're talking 6 months or less in a lot of cases, but the way that we manage it is also different, right? It is totally acceptable to build something on .NET Framework and leave it on a server and reasonably expect that, patches to at least .NET Framework, right, are still going to happen. So we have people that, they built something in 2008. It's still in production today, and they haven't really done a lot. As we look at .NET Core, as we look at other technologies, right, that becomes literally an idiotic move. And that's a real challenge to educate, because, the life cycle of .NET Core is 3 years long-term support, and you need to upgrade, right? That's not the way a lot of people have managed technology. So for me, that's been the real big challenge in the last couple of years, is transitioning that mindset from build it and forget about it, right? Or build it and just keep maintaining it, to you've got to curate it, right? You've got to water it. You've got to let it grow up. And that means some time investment that, some organizations just aren't willing to make.
Yeah, I think you do bring up something I didn't really think about until just now. You look at, so .NET Framework is pretty stable at this point, and you don't have to really worry about it. Because they said no new functions.
Yeah, you're not gonna get anything new.
And it's only security patches, right? Which you still got to be worried about security patches, but that's your least of problems. But you look at .NET Core, right? Which of course pretty soon will be just .NET. Now, sure enough, if you're running on one, well, if you're running on one, God bless you. But if you're running 1.1, right, it's probably time to upgrade anyways, because Microsoft's still trying to figure out what they were doing, right? Yep. You look like most of our stuff is on 2.1 right now. We are in the middle of planning an upgrade. Sometime in the next couple of months. Actually, I have a conversation tomorrow to figure out that timing. But and then we'll be on. We'll move up to 3.1. But the sad part is I know I won't have to upgrade the year after, but the year after that, if I'm gonna stay compliant, I'm gonna stay, not just trying to get new features, but just stay in support. We have to continuously upgrade.
That's exactly it. One of the talk I did last year, I think I did it at Code PaLOusa as well, was talking about migrating .NET Core and things you need to know, right? And one of the big things that I had done at that point in time was I'm like, so how many of you are running .NET Core 2.2 in production? And like a good number of people raised their hand in the room, and I'm like, you do know that that's no longer supported as of December 23rd. And the number of people's mouths in that room that dropped, and thank goodness I had screenshotted the Microsoft page, because I'm pretty sure I'd been called a liar.
Yeah.
Is that it's such a mindset change that some people just blindly jump towards .NET Core. But don't get me wrong, I believe .NET Core is the way of the future. We are doing it for almost every new project, with the exception of my other life, where I'm one of the maintainers of the DotNetNuke open source project. But you have to understand what you got into, right? I mean, even you in .NET Core 2.1, right? Barring something different, you only have support until August 21st of 2021 on 2.1. Those of us on 3.1, which is current recommended, right? We're good till December 3rd of 2022. But for a lot of companies, that's a really, really short lifespan. I mean, the good news is, right? Upgrading from 2.1 to 3.1 is traditionally not huge, right? I mean, the upgrades are minor, but it's an entire the life of a developer that isn't expected. And what I find is it's even above us, right? It's above the developers. It's at the scrum masters. It's at the business leaders that if they aren't planning to take some of this time for infrastructure, it's going to be interesting because you're on .NET you're targeting .NET Framework. Install 4.8 on your web server. Boom, we've got security, right? You still have all of your other dependencies and everything else, but aside from that, your app is still going to run. And support, right, for 4.8 for security runs all the way till 2031, I believe now.
Yeah, I think
it's either 2030 or 2031 because it's tied to the OS in which it was released in, and it's 10 years from that release. So I think it's like 2031. That's a way longer lifespan.
And it'll probably get expanded.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, there are people still using classic ASP in production, but we won't talk about that either. But yeah, for me, that's the big thing we've got going right now. It's moving fast, right? I mean, we have, 7 major .NET Core releases in the last 13 months. And that's huge. I mean, that's a way bigger frequency. It's hard for developers to stay up to date. It's hard for management teams to stay up to date. And that to me is the big technology hurdle right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we, like where I'm at, we had to get the company to agree that, so we do monthly sprints, and we've agreed that, 1 month a year will be basically what they've labeled as tech debt, right? So, whatever it is, problem is that a lot of those years, because we did last year, we upgraded from 1.1 to 2.1.
Yep.
This year, we're going to go from 2.1 to 3.1. I know I've already told them next year I'm not doing a .NET upgrade, but I'll have other things that we'll do next year. But
right, that's the problem, right? Though, is you have to add more time to it because if that upgrade does go complicated, right, then your entire tech debt sprint was a framework update, not actually addressing true tech debt. Well, and that's where the planning really comes in.
I mean, that's how it was for us last year. It was probably 80%. Just the upgrade from 1.1 to 2.1 because there was enough changes. Now, with that being said, we were able to do some other things. Like we found a lot of dead API endpoints that just weren't being used anymore. We cleaned those out. So we did a lot of that kind of work too. This year, I mean, we haven't slated everything we're going to be doing, but we're going to mix a couple things in, which. Sure enough, I'm going to make it a little bit hard on the tech team, but I'm doing it because that way QA is only doing a full regression once instead of, well, let me also do this later on and have to regression test it all again, because honestly for us, our hardest part is getting everything through test. And not that we have bad quality coming in, it's just so much quantity coming in and only so much bandwidth the testers can handle.
Right. Yeah.
So, no, it's sure enough. I gotta admit, I didn't really think of it that way, and I really, I need to think more of that way, because it is definitely a problem. Because on top of it, and you brought it up, if you're on 2.2, you need to get off 2.2 technically.
You do, and it's as a, I think it's a little bit more visible from a consultant's world, right? Sure. I think initially because. We'll do a big project for somebody, and that project goes into maintenance. But what's that look like? I've always used an adage, right, for years, right, that, okay, if we build you a project that's $100,000, make sure you've got a budget of $15,000 to $20,000, right, 15 to 20%, each year just to do some care and feeding. Mm-hmm. Not everybody does it, right? So, I mean, we do. I have one guy that has a site that we built in 2008. Against all advice I've given him, we've not updated it.
Yep.
It is 2020. It's old. It still runs. It's still mostly secure. But now he's so far behind that essentially it's a rewrite.
It's a rewrite, yeah, exactly. Which,
no, that's the big. I mean,
the flip side of it is, as long as he's let it go, a rewrite's not that expensive.
Right. He got great value.
Yeah.
And we're working on a blog post and everything this month, kind of talking about this real concept, because I get it in sales cycle stuff with clients so often, and it's just it's a different twist. And a lot of developers never cared either, right? I mean, most development teams were like, oh, I've never looked at the support date. Because I'll be like, well, when's .NET Framework end? And they're like, that's systems people, right? That's so it's definitely different, and I think that's it. Well, there's all kinds of other related things with how fast things are changing, but I think it's that piece is the real hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've been moving along. So sorry, I keep on getting distracted. I've got Teams open up on this other monitor, and someone's actually actively sending me messages right now.
My phone rang just a second ago. So
I ended up. So it's funny. I had a one-on-one a little bit earlier with one of my guys, and I basically ended up unleashing a monster. And he's now he's actually looking at op commerce, and he's just really excited. And so he's already built a container for it. He's launched it. And I keep looking at these pop-ups. Look what I've done now. And I'm like, okay, dude.
Let me read. Yeah. Notification overload. That may be the one downside to working from home or working remotely all the time.
Well, the funny part was it was me telling him, yeah, next week I need to look at stuff like op commerce, because we may or may not be replacing our e-com solution. And he's jumped on it.
That's awesome.
But it is awesome to have people like that. But there are also times I'm like, dude, chill. Take a moment. Go enjoy your lunch.
Right. Exactly.
But so talking about different technology. I mean, have you seen? Has there been a technology recently that's really been exciting you?
For me, it's still just continuing to wrap my head around all of the new stuff with .NET Core as time goes on. I've been looking in Blazor, looking at some of that stuff. We have so many options now that it's a bit overwhelming. I'm trying to find pet projects of my own to, give me a reason to go play with something new. But I've been focused more, not necessarily on net new technology, but doing things a little bit better with the technology that we have. So nothing huge, aside from the fact that I still believe that my discovery of Serilog and .NET Core logging is still the best thing I've ever stumbled across.
Yep. No, I can see that.
That's really the biggest thing. I mean, not to be literally plugging the technology, but .NET Core logging is amazing, but then you don't actually see how amazing it is until you put something like Serilog in place, and it's made our support life easier. It's made diagnostics so much easier. If I had to pick something, that's the real thing for me recently. No,
technology makes your life easier or makes your life better, right? And even though it's just because I get more information right up front, right? I mean, that makes a lot. I mean, that's what technology is supposed to be for, right? Yep. Sometimes we kind of get lost in doing these cool things, right? But it's really when we make a difference in life, that's when it makes a difference. But well, cool. So I'll move over. Sure enough, you talked about this really briefly already, but sure enough, I forgot the exact title you have, but I mean, you have a very big influence in .NetNuke. I guess now it's just DNN.
Sure, we can't. I mean, we names have changed, but DNN platform, .NetNuke. Yes.
So I mean, talk about. So what are you doing with DNN?
So I am the technology advisory group leader, or technology leadership group. I don't know. We renamed ourselves too, but basically I'm the leader of the tech side. So I am working with everybody that we have to, get our releases out there, improve quality. I'm in charge of all of our security response. So any security vulnerability that gets reported, I'm kind of leading the way to validate it, get a mitigation in place if we can, make sure that it gets in the next release, document that kind of thing. But really, it's, DotNetNuke has been around for, we're going on 20 years, and it's still very heavily used. We don't have solid numbers, but it's still estimated to have a global install base of somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000 installations. 2.5 years ago, it's been open source its entire life, but there was a cloud there for a while with the commercial entity. About 2.5, 3 years ago, I can't remember the exact timeline anymore. We really became open source again, and we're driven by the community, and we are, right? We set the roadmap. We're doing the releases. We're doing the testing. We're deciding what comes in and what doesn't. So it's been kind of exciting to help move that project forward. We've had a lot of talk about do we go .NET Core? Can we go .NET Core? What do we do? Efforts to go towards .NET Core right now have kind of been tabled just from a resource perspective. But going back to our earlier conversation, I don't necessarily think that that's a huge negative per se, right? We have a lot of DNN installations, right, that are running older versions because they haven't upgraded. They should upgrade, but they haven't. So we're really focusing on making things the best that it can be with the technology that we have, right? So we've had a lot of features that were added over the years by the corporate entity that were like added enough to say they had it, right? So like they added MVC support. Well, kind of, right? It didn't really do what it was supposed to do. So we've been spending a lot of time cleaning up some of those things. We're working right now to remove dependency on Telerik, which is going to be huge. So really, we're trying to take that project and continue to make it relevant, make it improve it. It has a great base for doing what it does. There's not really a lot of other options out there that are content management systems built in .NET that don't have $200,000-$300,000 price tags to it. So I think it's we're trying to keep it relevant and toe that line between relevancy and jumping on the new shiny, right? If we go to .NET Core, we will literally break every single person that's ever been on DNN, right? We cannot make a smooth transition. So the community has kind of spoken and said, well, that transition is the key, and if we can't do that transition, let's keep making our product better. So that's where we've been going with it. We've been, community contributions are rising, which is awesome. The .NET Foundation has been a fantastic support for us, to get things going, which I guess, by the way, vote for me in the .NET Foundation.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Directors, because I'm doing an interview for that shortly after we're done here. But I believe in open source. DNN was a real gateway for me, professionally. I got a book writing deal because of DNN back in 2009. I originally became an MVP because of what I was doing with DNN. But it also doesn't define me. I do so much with .NET Core that I do find it really important to kind of differentiate because it's two hats. It really is.
So, it's interesting. You talk about, sticking with .NET Framework, and I think that shows the perfect reason why Microsoft has done what they've done, right? They've decided that .NET Framework is not dead by any stretch of the imagination. They're just not doing updates to it. They're not, well, let me rephrase it. They're not doing new features to it. They're going to continue doing security patches and that type of stuff to it. The key to them, which is basically what you're doing, is we're going to make sure that anything we do, other than if it's a security patch that just is so bad it's going to have to break you, but other than that, we're not going to break you. All right, we're not going to apply changes and require you to do any rework.
I kind of liken it to almost the mantra that they took with Classic ASP. To be honest, like Classic ASP is still mostly supported today. under the same general guise that we're not going to break it. .NET Framework's not to that point yet, but it's, some people are like, oh, .NET Framework's the next Silverlight. I don't see that out of Microsoft yet, right? It may be, and this is where, like, when I go to people and they're like, well, .NET Framework or Core, net new projects, it is a trivial decision, right? .NET Core, embrace it, move on, right? But legacy, you have to really take a step back and look at, like, what do you get, right? I mean, you get all kinds of gains going to .NET Core, but for those that were really ingrained, right, in that web forms model, it's a huge effort. And, in the case of .NetNuke, right, every install, right, is dependent on web forms because the design, the skin or the theme is a web forms user control. You can't migrate that. You can't migrate that to MVC. So for us, it was kind of like, hey, now, does this open a door, right, that a new version of DNN that, maybe there's a transition path for might be the case? Yeah, it probably does. But that's going to come down to effort. But I don't think we are wasting anything by continuing to improve, secure, and otherwise.
No, I agree with you. I think the only thing you'd really get out of, there'd be some other things you get, but I think the big thing you would get out of going to .NET Core is just the cross-platform capability, right? But I'm not so sure how important that is for you.
For us, there's a lot more that could be gained.
That would be the biggest gain you would get, I would think.
Cross-platform would be huge. Performance, honestly, would be huge. Yeah. Our biggest thing is that we've got to, we have a platform that dynamically includes both web forms, web API, and MVC in the same request pipeline. That was done for a reason, but we'd get away from that. So I think there's some pipeline benefits, but we would lose our audience. Every single commercial module vendor, every single custom module that was built would not be compatible.
Exactly.
And that was where, and that's kind of where the community sat. So it's been interesting because I have a plan architected. I know how we could transition to .NET Core. It would be breaking, but it would be achievable. And I think it just comes down to if we get enough community volunteers, maybe it'll still happen.
Yep.
I don't know.
But going back to what I was alluding to, I hear this, from folks. Hey, I've got this legacy app. Should I go to .NET Core? And I always like, well, I don't know. It really depends on what you're trying to do with it. And I think, .NetNuke is a perfect example, right? You look at this, right? The decision was made to stay here because we had to break all these other things, right? Yeah, you would get cross-platform, you would get better performance. But if you break everyone on the installed base, obviously, sure enough, again, I'm sure you thought this, if you did that, you would have to basically have two versions of .NET. You would have to have, and then have a transition period of how long you support the old one.
And honestly, it would have been easier. So had we had the resources, right? .NET Core 2.1 introduced a real option for us, right? Where you could run a .NET Core app that also, was running on .NET Framework, right? That was actually our middle ground idea, right? Was a version that supported both. And then basically that would allow people to upgrade all of their stuff, right, to the .NET Core only stuff, and then they could go forward. But then when the life cycle came out, right, that 2.1 is no longer going to be supported, at the end of 2021, and that 3.0 doesn't support that hybrid model, that kind of killed our window. And we don't have the resources, right, to be able to do it. So now it's going to be a more abrupt window, right, of opportunity. So I think it's still there. We've got a plan. I've met with Microsoft. I've met with the .NET team, and vetted a lot of our idea of how we would do it. But it's, as of right now, just for the good of the community as a whole, we're putting our effort into making it the most secure and stable .NET based CMS that we can.
Oh, cool. So sure enough, because I completely forgot that you were running for the .NET Foundation board. For those who don't know, what is the .NET Foundation?
So the .NET Foundation, to try to summarize it, really briefly, basically it's, .NetNuke was contributed to the .NET Foundation. So basically, the .NET Foundation is really the real license holder, if you will, of the open source project. And the idea behind it is that the .NET Foundation, right, supports open source. It supports those projects, and they provide that support with development resources in terms of like Azure resources, Azure DevOps instances for build, SSL certificates, email, all of this like ancillary, let's make your project good. It also provides a bit of an overarching, what I'd call life framework, if you will, to how your project will survive, right? Because sure, I'm the leader of the technology side of DNN right now, and we've got others that are leading other aspects of it. But we may very well, decide that we don't want to work in it anymore. The .NET Foundation gives those projects a way to move forward. A lot of the projects that people use every day are part of it. A lot of the JSON.NET, for example. There's a lot of other projects out there, and the organization itself is doing amazing things. They also do some stuff for speaker support and education, which I think is trying to ramp up a little bit more. But there's a lot of good, but there's a lot of mystery in how you interact with it and how you go with it. And that's one of my reasons for getting involved is as a project leader, I've had to look under the covers in certain places and send emails jabbing people like, oh gosh, you could have just done that for me and saved us a bunch of time. So that's kind of my reason for getting involved is as a project leader that's in the foundation, I've seen some of those struggles, and I think that we can really elevate it to something bigger and better.
Yeah, I would say I think over the past year, the foundation has definitely grown a lot. Still has a lot of room to grow. So I mean, like I sit on the outreach group and the marketing group. And the outreach group has done more than the marketing group, at least in my view. But it still has a ways to go. Of course, now outreach group had a really hard time this year because going into the year we didn't plan on a pandemic, right?
Well, and that's there's gonna be a lot of zigzag, but like one of the other things I think that was amazing that hasn't gotten the legs underneath it was the maturity model. Mm-hmm. I can't remember which of the subgroups did that, but right, the maturity model was honestly an amazing thing. It had some flaws, but it kind of just died out, right? It was put out there a little bit totalitarianism, like, oh, you're gonna do this to become, mature. But then the discussion started and it just kind of went poof. Mm-hmm. But that's something that that's the guidance that a lot of these projects need. The DotNetNuke project, we're lucky that, we've been around for so long, so we had to figure some of the stuff out on our own, right? How we manage security issues was something we had to have had figured out already on our own. But so that's where I think there's room, right? There's not, if anything, it's staffing and under education are the real problems with the .NET Foundation. But I think there's a lot more room for that organization to grow and further those initiatives and support the projects, because we're whether people like it or not, we're almost as dependent on open source software these days as we are .NET Core itself, which is open source. Which is
open source, yeah, exactly.
That's a little bit different, but like with those dependencies, we need somebody to help those organizations elevate. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't, right, we could be jeopardizing a lot.
Well, I mean, you talk about like JSON.NET's in there, which almost everyone is. I mean, it's the number one package.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not, it's like, really,
If you're not, you just don't think you are. I mean,
right.
Because you are, right? I mean, admittedly, I know I have been actively moving things from JSON.NET to the built-in .NET JSON serializer. Yep. Which, and I keep on forgetting the guy's name, but he's encouraging you to do that, right? It's
yeah. Oh my goodness, I don't know why
It's James, and I'm drawing blank his last name.
It's James Newton.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, I really should know that, but yeah. No, I mean that's the thing is, I mean, and that kind of goes back to the other thing, right? We got all of the other, we've got all of the other stuff, right? It's more changes.
Well, but you talk about what Donovan Foundation is being able to do, because he is not putting as much effort into James Newton King. Yes.
Yeah, James Newton King. Yeah.
And
thank you.
Well, we just got a comment on the chat, and James Newton King, and he's no longer doing JSON. And I was just about to say that. That's where the DotNetNuke Foundation has been great, because James Newton King is not working on JSON.NET anymore, right? He's working on the gRPC project at Microsoft. But the DotNetNuke Foundation is there to ensure that project doesn't just die, because it definitely would have killed a lot of people's projects if it just died, right? And it didn't continue to get updated and improved.
That's exactly it. I mean, they push, the .NET Foundation pushes us, right, to not leave the keys in one castle, to let them have control, so that if something does happen, it's that project can continue. Mm-hmm. It took us when we became open source, really, and in terms of when the community took over, we're almost 3 years in. I still don't have control of our Azure Marketplace listing for DNN platform. Because it was tied to this one guy that used to work at DNN Software that doesn't work there anymore, and had two-factor authentication turned on to a cell phone that doesn't exist anymore. And even Microsoft hasn't been able to help us. So, it's one of those things where, like, the .NET Foundation, there's a lot of good that can come from it, and I think there's room to improve. And I think one of the best ways to know what can get better is to be a project leader that's been in there and suffered. We've had urgent requests, right, that took 33 days, that I ended up having to swipe my own personal credit card to solve problems, just to keep the project going. I mean, thankfully a lot of things we're talking about, like $30 here, $40 there, but what if it was something bigger, and that's what I think we can do better.
Yeah, definitely. And sure enough, I mean, I encourage people, if you have a genuine interest in .NET and where .NET's going, and the community as a whole, not just the framework, which is hard to say because framework means something, but .NET in itself. I mean, there's that, but then everything else outside of that, right? I highly encourage you to look at .NET Foundation and consider becoming a member. I mean, there are a couple things you have to do to become a member. And technically, it does cost, although the foundation is extremely liberal on giving waivers.
Right. They want the $100, and to be perfectly honest, if you can, give the $100. Mm-hmm. Because it goes towards providing the resources for these projects, right, and to cover the operating expenses of to keep that organization going. But that's, I mean, that really is, I mean, it is a huge benefit to what we have going on in our industry today with that shift towards open source. My apologies there. But yeah, so no, I think it's a great thing. It's going to be an exciting election. I'm running against an amazing slate of people. People I've known for years. Some I've met, some I haven't, but I know all of the names on that list.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, it's
backgrounds. I would love to be able to get in. I've got, I have board experience in a number of other capacities, so I'm a little bit, maybe a little bit more educated on some of the workings of organizational boards, which I hope might give me a little bit of a leg up. But yeah.
No, I definitely wish you luck in that. Now, how many positions are being? Because honestly, I don't know. I mean,
that I'm actually not 100% sure on.
Because it's a pretty big slate of folks who are running. So I was like,
there's 18 of us running, but I don't know how many seats there are.
Yeah.
I do not know, and I was trying to look this up, and I don't. It doesn't really say either. Like I don't know, the election policy maybe is where it.
I did see an email come today, and I'd be willing to bet it's, or at least I thought I saw an email come today. Where course, I get so many emails. It's a little bit hard for me to find it real quickly.
Okay, so it looks like there's going to be
Here it is.
3 at-large. Oh, yeah. So there's 6 at-large director seats. So then each year there are 3 vacancies unless somebody else had stepped down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, actually, so I see here. Yeah, I do see you are about to be interviewed.
Yep, I was gonna say, and I'm literally jumping off of this to get on with Heather Downing. So
yeah, well, let me go. I mean, because sure enough, we're hitting the hour mark. I try to keep these no more than an hour. But no, again, I wish you luck. I mean, like I'm looking at the list right now. I mean, I agree with you. They're all people I have not met every one of these folks, but I've met quite a few of these folks. So it'll be hard to decide who. So any party thoughts?
You know, really, for me, it's 2020 is a weird year. I don't think any of us have planned it, but support the things that are important to you, right? For me, it's supporting the events that I've gone to for years. I've gone to your guys' event for years. I've gone to, you know, I have a circuit, if you will, right, of events that I go to. You know, supporting those organizations, supporting those projects, you know, supporting the new technology. I mean, I think that's the big thing. You know, we are going to have conferences, events, organizations that aren't going to survive 2020. You know, that aren't going to happen again. So when we do have ways to support them, you know, to be there, you know, I think this is a time to really step in and try to support when we can.
I definitely agree. I mean, I'm a little bit biased in that thought, but I definitely agree also with it. Well, awesome. It's been great having you today. It's great having you, once again as a speaker at Code PaLOusa. I don't remember how many times you've been at Code PaLOusa. I know you've been more. You've been there more than you haven't been. I know that much.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I do appreciate every time you come and join us. And with that, okay, let's rate a channel real quick. Actually, I'm gonna run off to a MVP conversation. Actually, I was about to say what it is. I can't say what it is because it's all NDA.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know what it is because I was supposed to be going to that.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting enough that I'm not going to keep on streaming because I want to hear what they're going to say. So all right, we're going to go over to see Sharp Fritz. I have a feeling he's almost done because he's been streaming for quite a while. But I'm going to send the raid over there. So everyone, I appreciate you joining us today. Appreciate Mitch joining us today. Tomorrow.